I want to thank everybody for coming. This is something near and dear to my heart. I've had unfortunately, a lot of experience around incident response. Uh, I'll get into that here in a second. But everything you read in the news is something that a lawyer has gotten a hold of and not manipulated, but let's just say the true story is not always in what you read. You have to kind of read between the lines to understand really what's happened. And we'll kind of go through those and why that's the case. Uh, for every slide deck, you always have to have an agenda. So we will go through some of these areas here in a few minutes. These three threat actors I've actually had to investigate and been in depth, strongly involved in the investigation, the remediation, the exfiltration, or the removal, let's just put it that way, of the threat actors in those environments, and then the making sure that when we are back in a good spot, that they're not allowed back in, at least to the best of our ability, because there have been times that you go through and you spend a lot of time and a lot of money to do the remediations, and everything's great, everything's fine, and a couple of years later another threat actor comes knocking on the door because there was that one control that you didn't put in that could have either reduced it or prevented it altogether. But before we get started there, just a little bit about me. Right now, I'm currently the CISO for Crash Champions. And prior to that, I was the virtual CISO for a reseller here in the DFW area. There is sound, right? I just saw that pop up in chat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I haven't run into any issues over here at all.
Perfect. So as the virtual CISO for a reseller, you get introduced to a lot of organizations across the period of time you're there, either existing clients or new clients. And then from that, I actually built out our virtual CISO program where I was the virtual CISO for 4 different organizations. And that gave me a lot of insight and ability to help grow their security posture. Some, unfortunately, had some sort of event that got me introduced to them. And then after that, they were like, hey, can you stick around and do this long term? Prior to the reseller side, I was actually the CISO for an oil and gas organization where I helped build their security program to what it was when I left. Prior to me taking over that role, it was a simple email firewall, internet firewall, and endpoint protection that just wasn't really given the love that it needed. After that, I mean, there was privileged access management, there was endpoint management, there was more advanced endpoint protection. It did not look the same as when I started it than when I left. From there, a little bit more about me. You can see my credentials. On top of that, my hobbies. Just say I love my family. I've got 2 daughters. My loving wife, she still puts up with me, and so do the kids. One of my biggest outlets that helps me is fitness. And yes, I am actually at a standing desk, and underneath my feet is a walking pad. I figured I'd spare some of y'all with the car sickness component that comes along with my video of me walking while doing this, but typically I am in movement and not standing still. Outside of that, you got faith. And lastly, what I do as a career is also what I do as a hobby. Uh, I don't feel like you can actually do this role unless you truly appreciate it and treat it as nothing more than a hobby, because it is extremely overwhelming at times. It can get out of control with the number of threats and events that are occurring. One of my things that I love to do is I put together a newsletter on a weekly basis that I share. And that newsletter, I'll usually five to six, maybe 7 different articles that I'll write about. And then kind of what's on my my mind or my heart, and that I want to share as well. So outside of that, I will get us started.
Hey, a quick question
Yeah.
for you. Like, just even and you don't got to go back to the slide, but when you were talking about those organizations, when you were involved, I mean, did your role start with the incident response and then and work through from there with the forensics and everything, or
Um, so that's a funny story. It was originally started as a pre-sales role. They wanted to start a cybersecurity practice. They had been in business. I mean, the company itself, the parent company, has been around for over 100 years. The reseller side of it had been around for over 35 years. They're really well known here in the Dallas area as a Cisco Gold Partner. Um, Really hard to get. For those that don't understand the Gold Partner relationship with Cisco, you have to share and do a lot. You have to have a lot of certifications. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's a big deal in that world. But the only security that we did was that of what Cisco offered, or what maybe Fortinet or Palo Alto did. One afternoon, I get a phone call from an account manager that said, "Hey, we've got a customer out in East Texas that thinks they might have had the Hafnium issue, and can you help out?" So went in and started talking to them, and we brought in, and so just to clarify, we were not a digital forensic firm. So we did not house the employees that would do the investigative forensics. I was the quarterback. I helped make sure that what was being found by our forensics teams was correlate or brought back to the business and the IT teams, and then also making sure the IT teams or the security teams that were remediating, that was communicated back up to the executive level. So I was help coordinating that, right? I was help making sure everyone was doing what they needed to do and move that needle in the right direction.
right?
And then when it came to the report, I would also review the report before it went to the customer to make sure that, hey, are there recommendations that I personally would recommend if I was in their shoes that I would want to have put in place? And so that was the other part of that, right? Is to make sure that we had the right recommendations, because a lot of times a forensic team will come in and they will already have a can. It's kind of like the threat actors. When you get a hit and let's say you pay the ransom, they'll send you an email and it'll have a nice little Word document letter saying, "Here's where you need to improve." It's wonderful, right? You pay millions of dollars to get those keys, and they give you
Yeah,
recommendations on how to keep that from happening again. Well, it's canned. Um, Sadly, most of the time for digital forensics, it's canned too. So my goal was to remove the canned approach and move it more of a unique for that individual.
gotcha. Oh,
And a
right.
lot of times um, sometimes it's just process improvements, not necessarily technology. So
Sure.
does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. I just
Okay.
wanted to have it give the best context of where you were and what the lens you were seeing stuff through. I'll put it that way.
Okay. And for Jordan, the only thing that's Attack of the Clones is for you, sir. Only for you.
Yeah, and Jordan did post up there that he's going to catch up to you on desk walking in about 1 century.
Jordan, I will get you over one day, man. It will happen.
Yeah,
All right. I had to. I had to put this disclaimer in there. These are my opinions, my views, not Crash's, not my previous employers. So let's just make that clear. Also,
were you told to do that, or was it?
no, I just feel it's best practice.
I
Now,
agree with you. I just
now, do you think that I had legal review this before oh, yes, I did. They, I followed suit, but I've also got a great relationship with our legal department as well. So that was been very helpful.
right on.
Also, I will not be making any names. So anything that you point or you as the listeners assume, I can't control assumptions. You will not get any names from me. There will be no like just not happening. Just to protect those that were affected by these events, because these are real events that did occur. All right, hafnium, the good, the bad. All right, so with hafnium, we had this occur with two different organizations, and they were about 6 months apart. They they were affected completely different because of the way that they handled the event. So we'll take the first one. Actually, it was the first call that I received to help investigate while at my previous role, and they were proactive. They sat there and said, "Hey, we think we are affected based on the IOCs, the indicators of compromise. The data we found on the web got us to this far, but we don't know for sure. Is there anybody that you can have come in and help find out?" And so we did. We brought in a digital forensics. We spent a couple of hours. They say you were definitely affected. We see the files. We recommend we do a full blown search into your environment to see if if they moved out of your Exchange server into this. For those that don't know what Hafnium was the event that occurred with Exchange back in 2021, where there was a vulnerability in the on-premise version of Exchange that allowed a threat actor to come in through an API connection and allow them to put in what I would call a shim. Kind of think of it like a little shim in a window where they will put this in there and then they will disappear. You won't even know they've been there. 6 months later, they'll come back and they'll ransom your environment. Why? Because Exchange is the most overprivileged in system in your environment besides Active Directory that needs it because it needs to operate. It needs to be able to do its job, but Microsoft gave it godlike permissions to be able to do that. The other company didn't. They weren't proactive other than applying a patch. Unfortunately, with a lot of these issues, Microsoft will sit there and go, install this KB. People install it. They don't go read the notes for that KB. And the problem with that is there are sometimes that these KBs require additional steps to be performed. You have to go in and you have to make modifications. We've been desensitized to this to think that you apply it, the patch, the executable, and you're done. Move on. That's what they thought. Unfortunately, 6 months later, right as I was actually on a Tuesday before I was going to load up to Black Hat and fly out, I was rowing on a row machine. I get a phone call from our VP, and he's like, "Hey, I know you're going to Black Hat. Do you have like 10 minutes you can jump on a call with one of our clients that seems to be going through a ransomware attack?" And I'm thinking in my head, 10 minutes, huh? Yeah, sure. So I get on a call and they're like, "What do we do?" Okay. Don't turn anything off. Unplug it. And if it's VMware, unplug the host, but don't turn off anything. And some people go, "Why?" And they actually did question that. Why? Why do we need to not shut anything off? Because the moment you turn off the servers, you get the bad guys out, but you lose a lot of evidence. When you go through and do a digital forensics, you need that evidence to truly understand what they did, how they did it, and what else they put in the system that you might need to remove.
Right.
One of the things that we found is that they had endpoint protection. It was affecting the behavior of their servers. They turned it off on all of their servers. So their
Oh,
endpoint protection was just an agent running, but not doing any protection. They did that in the beginning when they first put it in, and they never went back and really did anything to like improve it.
right, right. That's not good.
No, it wasn't. It was
Yeah,
not good at all.
yeah.
Um, Additionally, what we were able to do is like, hey, this endpoint protection one isn't doing it for you. So we're going to recommend, well, you need to put something else in its place, right? So we recommended another company. And without saying the name of the vendor, if you see the color of my background, it might give it away. If you're into the endpoint protections that rank up in the top, I'd say top 5 of the MITRE framework. If not, you want to go Google search what EDRs or endpoint protections have purple. By all means, you can do that. When we first put it in, they were like, "Oh, this is too abrasive. We need to tune it down." Like, no, we're not. We're going to work through this. We're going to figure out what exclusions need to be put in place. And trust me, he was not very happy about that in the beginning. We fought through it. We got through there, and it worked. Right? It was actually very effective. Now, on the last bullet point, you see hardware can be a linchpin. He was never approved to have backup hardware. So he took old servers, and old servers mean old hard drives, put them behind a firewall, put in rules in place that say nobody can talk beyond this firewall. Anything behind the firewall can go out, grab snapshots, and bring it in and store it. It was glorious because guess what? Threat actor couldn't ransom his backups. They destroyed their entire server infrastructure. And I mean destroyed. They go to recover. They start recovering like crazy. The last server to be recovered was Exchange. Halfway through that recovery, the backup failed. Why? Because they were running 7,500 RPM, or sorry, 5,500 RPM drives, the old school drives, that it couldn't handle the backups anymore, or the recovery process anymore. So then we had to then take that out and spin it off to a data recovery company to recover, which took 3 more weeks to get that fully recovered so they can rebuild their Exchange server. Now, thankfully, they had other controls in place that allowed them to use their, we call them SEGs, security email gateways, as the main endpoint and outpoint. And then they had to get with all their users to redirect to that to check their email as they were coming in. Great in the middle solution. But because of that, it caused issues for the rest of it. Now, the other caveat here is they had payroll due in 2 days. They paid weekly. And most of their workforce were not, I mean, they relied on that day, that weekly paycheck. I mean, these are some individuals that if they didn't have that that weekly paycheck, it was life altering.
Right.
They were able to get payroll done and out to everybody effectively. Now, was it the exact hours? No, they had to kind of fiddle with the numbers a little bit to take care of their people. But thankfully, the backups didn't peter out until Exchange, and they were able to get everything else put in place. So the point here is that with Hafnium specifically, you have to make sure that patches that are being applied, you're following the full amount of instructions. And having vulnerability management in place allows you to scan. And just because you applied the patch doesn't mean you're actually clear for that vulnerability. A lot of good vulnerability management tools will actually tell you, hey, you have this, but maybe you don't have these registry changes in place to fully put it in line. And so you're still failing it, and allows you to go and investigate and find out what needs to be happening next. So before I move to the next slide, Dave, do we have any questions or anything?
Not questions, but if you want to take a look, there's some real good back and forth about forensics and stuff like that. If you just want to give it a look, I wouldn't be surprised if you have something from experience or knowledge if you want to just chat on that. But
Yeah. So the best part that I would say is around forensics. If you have physical hard drive or physical servers, the goal is to get some sort of download that you can plug USB in and the forensic team is already, you just run one command and it will grab and then suck and then put on the thumb drive. You take that off and you either take it to your machine and upload the forensic data, or you, if they're local, you can give it to them locally. The other thing about forensics is there are a lot of companies that go, MDR providers. There's one in particular that will sit there and say, you don't need to get third-party forensics because our agent can do forensic details. And I'll go into this here in a minute, but high level, cool. What if your network is slammed because your Active Directory servers are down and your workstations are trying to communicate with the Active Directory server that doesn't exist, and it's bombarding your entire network with traffic that's preventing you from even, your anybody in your company from even working.
Right.
People forget how chatty Active Directory is when it is offline. So just something to take into consideration there.
Sure. No, I appreciate it, man.
The last thing is that saw court of law with forensics is yes, there is a, if you are ever called into in front of a judge or you ever go into a legal battle, you want to make sure that your forensic team that you bring in has experience with going into a courtroom and proving that their evidence is pristine. They've got the backups of, this was the image of the hash when we pulled it. This is the image of the hash they were showing you now. They line up. No data was altered, right? That is very key when you go into a legal consideration. Also, know your cyber insurance really well, because they're out there to make sure that they're not having to pay a lot of money. They're not there to protect the organization. You're paying them, and they're going to come in with a heavy hammer and try to be the boss. They're going to tell you to do things that you won't agree with, and depending on the contract that you have, you may have to just do it and get over how you truly feel about it. It's not fun. All right, next one, Conti, the the threat actor that took out Costa Rica for a long period of time. I don't know if anybody remembers that or not, but they came out with a vengeance against Costa Rica.
What did Costa Rica do to?
They just, the city, I mean, the country itself, they went in and destroyed all of their IT systems.
No, no, I'm saying, what did Costa Rica do so wrong?
They wouldn't pay the ransom. I'm not saying it's wrong. They just wouldn't pay the ransom. So it was one of Conti's last public fights before they finally went off into the sunset and rebranded eventually. But that was one of the largest, like longest battles of, you pay us or they just kept attacking them nonstop. But the Costa Rica did not want to pay.
Got it. Well, Jordan chimed in that their pina coladas weren't strong enough, and that may have played a role too. But I like where I think your comments add more concrete value. Not that Jordan's don't.
And I can only imagine right now, Anu is really laughing, and if she had any water, she'd probably spit it on her screen.
Jordan's so proud of himself right now.
Oh yes, it's a yep. I know Anu too well. Okay, Conti. Conti was an interesting one. So the way this one worked is they were really big on email attacks, and they convinced a person in the company they sent them an email. They were human resources. And they said, here's a list of options for recruiting that we've got, candidates that we think you would love. It's instead of sending the attachment, they sent a link and they said, here's the link to download the zip file. Oh, by the way, it's password protected, and here's the password for it. So what did the HR guy do? He clicked it, he downloaded it, he put in the password, and he opened it, and it was like, oh, you have to run this in macros. Macros are disabled. So what does he do? I'll go ahead and click it. So he clicked it. Nothing happened. Well, about a week later, that was on a Tuesday. On a Friday, I get a phone call that says, hey, we're having a really bad day. we're hit with a ransomware attack. Okay. Well, they didn't know it was a ransomware attack at the first. All they knew that somebody was going in and disabling and changing the password to all their Active Directory accounts on them. And they're like, we can't even get in there and do anything. Okay. Um, I would also like to note that there were recommendations made about a year prior for this organization that unfortunately their board didn't approve, that may have helped prevent this or reduce the outcome that they had. But they had about 1,500 systems that got ransomed through a GPO push. That about 45 days later, we finally got fully recovered. It's not fun. Part of the reason why was is every employee was a local admin. Another
Lord.
problem was is that the individual who clicked on this was, yes, a local admin, but also they used a domain admin to do scans on everybody's computer. So it was stored in memory. And so when they got on there, within 2 hours after we had forensics involved, we found out that um, they were only on that computer for 2 hours before they pivoted off into somebody onto the servers. And they went through all the servers and found all the fun stuff that they wanted. The bad part is that they never had to leave that user's computer. All they needed to go into is the downloads folder, and they would have found every bit of PII for the entire organization that they ever wanted. You might be going, how? Well, this individual loved to go into their ERP system. Too many acronyms. ERP is, think of it as like the platform that's for HR, finance, accounting, blah, 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 to run the organization. Well, this one was specifically for HR. And anytime they wanted to run a report, they downloaded the full database of everybody for their pay, their social, their all stored data onto their computer to run their report. And they never ran it for, let's say, like a specific business unit. They downloaded it for everybody. And they never deleted the files.
Oh my
So,
God.
oh yeah, they never had to leave this dude's computer. They could have exfiltrated that folder and been done, walked away, and still said millions. But
Wow.
they decided to go for the full shebang and pivot. And they went through, ransomed every computer, ransomed every server, destroyed one of their two backup servers, deleted all they were running appliance based backup infrastructure. And so they got on that, found the archives, deleted all the archives. Um, they additionally had no logging, so we had nothing to go back and look at. We were hoping we would get any kind of firewall logs, but their firewalls only stored about 4 hours. Um, the endpoint protection they were running, yeah, it flagged a few of them, but guess what? It didn't actually stop it. But we had the hash. We got the hash. So when we started putting on the new endpoint protection, you will start to see a theme here. I have a very favorite endpoint protection. Um, put it in, we threw in the hash, and we started sending out to all over the United States thumb drives that ran a script that uninstalled the old, installed the new, and within seconds of it being installed, it wiped out the ransomware binaries on the machine. Now,
Okay.
they pushed this out through GPO,
How many endpoints recently?
12 to 1,500.
Okay.
And so the only way to get it to work with their existing endpoint protection is you had to put in a rule, then you had to force a full scan on every computer for it to go look for any new blacklisted hashes, which is ridiculous. It should be automatic. You add something, it should automatically do it. This one didn't do it. The EDR was it was nasty. And it didn't stop it. That was the whole problem. It had no stopping for it. And so it took about 45 days. And I will throw this out there. On average, my experience shows that from the time the event you start investigating to the time that you get to a workable life again, you're about 45 days into you've lost out of your life and recovery process. Um, it's not fun. You lose a lot of sleep, you get some gray hairs. Like I said, I've been through 4 of these, and even though they weren't my organizations going through them, I sat with them as if it was. I was on every call. I was working with C levels. I was working with the engineers. I was working with the forensics. This one, like, we recommended, unfortunately, an MDR provider a year prior. We recommended a new endpoint protection a year prior. We recommended all these things, and they didn't see the value, or they didn't want to put forth the effort. The price tags were too much. They decided to stick with what their existing was, and this was the outcome. Now, am I saying that any of these changes that I recommended a year prior would have fixed this? No. Am I saying that the risk is potentially a lot less had they done these changes? Yes. But again, they still left local admin rights. That changed from that point on. And funny enough, the desktop support people sit there and complain the most about having to remove admin rights. Wasn't the users losing it, it was literally the complaints came from the help desk, because now they have to actually get on people's computers and install software. That was the whole reason why they allowed it.
Wow.
Secondly, we insert privileged access management, also known as PAM. That was a big change. They weren't used to having a separate account. Everyone who has an admin had an admin, their normal account and their local account, normal account and privileged activity was all in the same. This split it up.
Right.
They didn't have MFA. They were on-prem exchange. We were in the process of implementing MFA, in the process of moving them to O365 when all of this went down. So it was expedited. You couldn't get back into your account until you had MFA. You had to prove you had to install MFA. You had to get your new password. You had to verify and confirm through a screen share that you had the endpoint protection on there. Like, we had all of these checklist items of, nope, not until this is done.
Right. Right.
So it was definitely an interesting one. And unfortunately, like, there are business decisions. People say don't pay the ransom. You're supporting terrorists, or you're supporting threat actors, or whatever. Here's the thing. Unless you're a CEO on this call, you have no say. You have zero say. You can make recommendations, but you have no say.
Right.
And the reason why is because paying a ransom will always be a business decision. It will never be a security decision, because the business has to determine what's down, what's being lost, can we live without it? And a lot of times you don't hear in the news that they paid a ransom because it's considered confidential information.
Right.
Any questions on this? I'm doing a time check real quick. All right, we're at 40. Perfect.
Yeah, no questions online. A lot of comments and just kind of riffing off what you said. Well, I guess a question would be if you took the cost of recovery and everything that they went and the impact of what happened and compared that against the proposed cost that was declined the year before. Um, did they save money?
Microscopic. It would have been tremendously less.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah, it would have been tremendously less. Um, there's a lot of why factors there. Like, one, they didn't have a C level in the IT department, right? They had, I think that at the point they reported to the CFO. Um, I've always loved the CFOs I've worked for. I've built relationship with them so they can understand the why. So when I was the CISO for the oil and gas, I could have a conversation. I could walk into my CFO's office, bypass my CIO directly, go directly and sit in my CFO and just have a heart to heart with him. And my CIO never blinked an eye. Say, great, have fun. You want me involved? Not? If you do, let me know. My CFO, open arms, just come on in, sit down, let's have a conversation.
Right.
Right? You have to have those relationships. If not, you're a cost center. If you're a cost center, the chances of getting something improved before an attack are much less than after an attack.
Yeah, the relationships are huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, we do have one question that just came in. Have you seen an event where they paid the ransom and the recovery keys did not work or things were still corrupted?
Let me get to the next slide, Eric, and I will answer that question.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on.
Sure.
Alpha B. This one is near and dear to my heart because if I ever hear that a medium isn't worth a phone call, I want to hit somebody in the face. I have never been on a virtual phone or on a phone call where I wanted to take my hand, slip it through the mouthpiece onto the other part and grab them like a cartoon character and strangle somebody's throat more than I did on this one. All right. So this one was interesting because we all have third party vendors, right? Everyone has third party vendors. How do you onboard and how do you offboard? Why not? Do you have, when you onboard them, do they require that you only give them one account for their entire team to be your MSP of something into your environment? Now, hear me say MSP is a very broad term. It does not mean they handle just workstations or they handle just servers or they just handle network or firewalls or phone systems, right? That MSP umbrella can cover all of that or just one part of that. The problem is when you utilize an MSP that sits there and says, give me one account that I can VPN into your network to do my job. Cool. How many reps will you potentially have in my environment? Why does that matter? Well, you want one account. Do you have one rep? Well, no. We have an entire desktop full of people that, or group of people that can log in. Oh, so you want 10 people to log in with that one account? Well, no. It's more than that. 100 people? Well, we don't know for sure. I mean, but sure. Well, how are you going to handle MFA? Oh, you got to turn that off. What? Yeah, you can't have MFA on. So the business decision was to, okay, that's what you tell us, so we're going to do it.
You're our guys.
So the decision was to give them one account, turn off MFA. Then at some point, they got let go. That account never got turned off.
Mm.
That account never got removed from that do not MFA. There was another one that was a test account that was allowed to not have MFA set up on it. Like it still required MFA, but MFA was never actually set up. Now, my question is, and I still don't know this answer, what were these passwords? Were they complicated? Were they stupid easy? Did they brute force them? Like, what were they? Never got that answer. I have my assumptions. We can leave that for an off the not recorded conversation. Well, let's just say that there are threats all around you, whether you want to admit it or not, that are external and internal, technical, people oriented, that you just have to constantly be on the lookout for. So, are you doing access reviews? Do you have policies in place, procedures in place for offboarding all people, employees, contractors, vendors, whatever? Then The other is if you have an MSP, why give them a VPN? Why not create like a VPN connection into your environment? Why not stand up an IPsec tunnel? If they're coming from a protected environment, you can give them access to an IPsec tunnel that allows them to connect in through a established connection over specific ports, and you can lock it down to where they can only access the server that they need to access and not everything else. There's more control there. Instead, they wanted VPN client. Well, let's fast forward a little bit. It was a wonderful, well, was it Monday or Tuesday? I think it was a Tuesday morning. It was a wonderful little beautiful Tuesday morning. We get an email. We're seeing this weird activity. Can you investigate? Well, by the time the email got looked at, we're already investigating why the servers are going down and what's happening. Well, turned out over Sunday, there was an event. MDR may have seen activity, investigated it, and said, "Oh, that looks benign." Monday, about the same time, same event pops up. Another analyst looks at it, goes, "Oh, the other analyst marked this as benign. I'm going to do the same thing." Tuesday, same activity, different analyst. He goes, "Huh. Well, they marked this as benign, but it just looks weird. I'm going to mark it as a medium." Policy is if it's a medium, you don't call, you just send an email. By 9 o'clock, everything is down.
Wow.
And on top of that, we found out that not only were they ransoming stuff, they were sending out through GPO a screen share tool, a legitimate tool that was installed through GPO to spy on people as they worked.
Nice.
Record sessions, record backgrounds, record whatever, do whatever they wanted. Thankfully, we were able
Keyboard
to
logging.
stop this.
Was it like keyboard logging as well?
Oh yeah. It does everything. And some of the people that they were watching or looking at had some really crazy access and had some really crazy stuff involved. Now, the thankful part is we were able to figure out, hey, thankfully the stupid part on their part was they went through one vendor that allows for POC type environment, demo environments, right? Like you can go, anybody can go to this company, create a temporary like test. Hang on. I have
No,
my daughters are kind of going at it with each other. So if there's background noise, I apologize.
no, I was afraid you were in the beginning stages of another slide for a
No,
few.
no. So what ended up happening there is that they sent out this software. We were able to figure out, well, okay, the vendor of choice that they chose to use, you can go and create a 30-day trial. You get full access to the tenant, full blown capabilities. They're able to set it up to where nothing pops up for the user. They're able to do all of this stuff. Then they use that to distribute out to the entire environment. Thankfully, because of that, it creates a very specific hash. For those that don't know what a hash is, it is the thumbprint of a file. If a file changes, Word document, Notepad, text, whatever, executable, the binaries, that thumbprint changes. It will not, if you modify it, it will not stay the same. So we were able to get that. We were able to get his thumbprint, throw it in our endpoint protection, and wipe it out. Well, it took a minute because the problem is it wouldn't let it just kill it because it was running. So then we had to run a script that said, kill this process. As soon as it was killed, it wiped it out. So we were able to remove their access and it would not come back because we grabbed out the correct DLLs files to prevent it from rebuilding itself or reestablishing that connection. Yay, good us. But they still had 3 days in the environment that allowed them to do everything that they wanted to do and get out the information. Then they had about 8 hours of recording people's sessions of doing things, and it just was nasty. Now, I was asked about, they used the old images because they were never removed. Yes, Jordan, they did. That was how they got in. Then on top of that, the demo account I kind of mentioned a little bit in the beginning, they took that account, or the test account, they took that one and created MFA on it. So in the event that we went and disabled the vendor account, they would still have access.
They secured the other.
Yes, they did. Now, how did they get those 2 passwords? That was the crazy part. We, like I said, we still don't know.
Well, it probably was one password.
Could have been. Could have been. Again, I've never gotten that answer. It drives me nuts. To this day, it still drives me nuts.
How many times did you ask?
A few.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm kind of persistent in that way.
Dude, I know you. So yeah.
I don't like the unknown, because if I don't know it and I get asked, I don't like saying I don't know. Like, that drives me nuts. And I try to pre-think of, like, what am I going to be asked? What can I do to prevent being asked, and I can already have it presented to them. Now, the part that really was the nasty here was that they went in, and this is where endpoint protection is not bad. It doesn't have the capability. So a lot of these servers that they had in the environment were ESXi. For anyone who's aware of ESXi or not, it is a Linux-based operating system that is custom built for VMware. You can't put endpoint protection on it. So how did they kill all the servers? They went into the ESXi host and they decrypted the VxRails, all the backups, through the command line of VMware. So you ask the question of, hey, have you ever seen somebody pay for the decryption keys and it failed? Yes. Because when they encrypted it through VMware, it corrupted the encryption, because the way VxRails works. It was nasty. There was no recovery. We spent weeks trying different ways, support, everything to try. Brought in third parties to come in and do it. It was not fun. So I know we're coming up on time, so I'm going to jump to the last slide.
Sure.
So these are going to be my final tips and takeaways, right? Things are going to happen no matter what. The question is are you prepared, and have you created a plan, right? Have you created a plan that you're willing to use? I've had plans built for me where we have literally spent more money than I make in a while, and we never touched it. We did a full-blown, years and years and years ago. We spent $500,000 of reviewing our plans, reviewing our policies, building us a plan, doing a pen test and an evaluation, and reporting all this to the board and the executive levels and everything else. The plan was so stupidly, overly complicated, nobody touched it. I then brought in another person to help me build a plan. It was great. It read like a NASA step-by-step guide. I loved it. My brain processed it effectively. I left. I found out that the new guy who came in after me, great guy, love him to death. He's a security guy. He preferred his own plan. So in the course of time, they had 3 plans, and now he's gone, and I don't know what they're using.
Right.
But the thing is are you practicing the plan? Do you have it implemented? Does your team know it like a fire drill? If the fire alarm goes off in an office building, you know where to go down the stairs. You know where to muster. Do you know the plan that well? Okay. Logs are important. If you have the ability of storing logs out of your environment in a SaaS provider that has no access back, and they can't be deleted, do it. Do not hesitate, do it. If you think, oh, I can put it on an on-premise server or back it up in here, they're going to find it, they're going to delete it. Get it off your network. They are going to be imperative for the investigation. We kind of mentioned this a little bit, but making sure that your endpoint protection is properly configured and properly working. And if it sits there and says, hey, this device isn't working properly, go figure out why. If it's running out of memory, you might want to look at getting more memory. If it's running out of hard drive space, come on. These are basic IP or IT issues. Find a way to make it work. They don't ask for the moon. The endpoint protections don't. Give it what it needs so it can operate, because in the time of an event, if it's not, you're screwed. I mean, there is no nice way of putting it. Okay.
Sure.
MFA is not an end-all be-all. I'm not going to say that it is. Passkeys are a great alternative to like traditional MFA. Authenticators are much better than SMS. SMS is much better than voice calls. YubiKeys are better than all of that. They're right on line with passkeys. If you can implement it and use it, do it. Windows Hello is a great option. Some people are still like, oh, it's biometrics. Oh, it only has a 6 key, 6 numbers. Thing is they got in the 6 numbers, they can't get past your machine because they don't know the password. If it's your facial recognition, and let's say you get nation state after you and they clone your face or something and they open your computer, you got bigger problems to deal with.
Right.
But above all, I can't stress this enough. Practice, 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 improve, improve, improve. Have your documentation. Every event you investigate, create a process to document what happened, how it happened, who found it, what did you do, what is your evidence, and store it in a repo that you have access to and is backed up. Have even backup for your cloud, OneDrive, Exchange. Rubrik has great options there. So, all right, we got 2 minutes left. I hope I answered everybody's. All right, what guidance would you offer to someone seeking to build experience in cybersecurity outside a traditional internship? Oh, Joshua. Luck, knowing people, getting people's trust, networking, people relationships. If you want to get into cyber and you want to get experience, it is going to be knowing the people to give you the chance. No amount of what you put on your resume, no amount of what certifications you have, you need to know people. And the only way you're going to know people is get out and meet people, build relationships. All right. What else?
Yes. There is one other question from Emmanuel right up above that. What are the most effective technical controls you recommend to implement to secure privileged access for third-party vendors beyond just MFA?
Logging, endpoint protection, more advanced email firewall. I'm not a fan of segs. I like the ones that go into the user's mailbox through an API connection into Google or Microsoft is going to be the best, because those have more of a AI mechanism doing the scanning, and it doesn't impede or slow down the volume of emails coming in. So email protection, if you want to enable your users, look at some sort of endpoint management tool. We call them EPMs, but it allows certain software to be allowed to promote itself to administrative rights, but not everything else. And it's not in user context. It's actually at the application level. So it gives an admin token to the actual application of the process, not the application on a constant basis unless you tell it to.
Awesome.
And I agree with Simon. You do need to understand your business to understand the risk appetite. Risk appetite is huge. Is the business willing to spend money on security or not? Is what you're trying to protect worth the dollar that you're trying to put into it, right? I will never recommend someone going and buying the minimum break into one of these big endpoint protection companies that might cost them, let's say, $6,000 a year for 50 licenses, the minimum, to protect 2 machines. Unfortunately, at that point, either they go to an MSP or an MSSP, or they go to something like an ESET or AVG, something else that they can buy like one-off licenses for. Delinea and Beyond Trust and other options out there that are more cost-effective and easier to own. I do have to drop, unfortunately. I have another meeting.
Okay.
I hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope that you got something out of it. I know that not everyone has the same opinions on everything, but I hope that just brought some new insight into where we are.
No, this was fantastic. Dude, you have so much experience, and I just appreciate you taking the time to share it with everybody.
You
You know,
bet.
play it forward. Thank you. Thank you
You
very
bet.
much.
I'll talk to y'all later. Y'all have a great one. Okay, guys?
Right on.
All right.
Cool.
Bye.
Let y'all go. Thanks. Bye. All right, everybody. You have a great day. Thank you, and we will see you soon. Any closing? Oh.